Hi, welcome to Edward Box Guitar Tuition. So I've got another classic album inspection for you today. This day, June the 27th, 1986, Queensryche released their second full album, Rage for Order. So a little bit of history. Back in '83, they did their self-titled EP. Got a lot of really good press coverage, particularly in the UK and Kerrang magazine. And then that led to a deal with EMI, and they recorded their first full debut album, The Warning, in 1984. I think fans and the band were a little disappointed at the time with the album because they felt the mix was kind of too washed in kind of reverb, and it didn't have that cutting edge attack and the rawness of the EP. I think with hindsight, I think time's been kind to The Warning, and for all its faults in the mix area, it has some great songwriting on it, and it's a full-on power metal album in the vein of Dio and Iron Maiden. But a lot was riding on Rage for Order. The Warning hadn't quite kind of gone where they wanted to, but they had some great support slots. Basically, they went out to several studios. I'll just look across my computer. There was MDH Studios in Bellevue, Washington, with Le Mobile Remote Sound Studio. So obviously used a remote recording. Scott Rockenfield said that the drums were done in a stone warehouse. So that explains the harshness of the sound. Although the album sounds digital and uses a lot of digital technology within it, it is analog recording, unlike Empire and Operation Mindcrime. They also went to Mushroom Studios in Vancouver. So that's a famous studio because that's where Heart used to record, and then Mushroom was the label they were on, and they later got renamed after the record label, I believe. And there was Yamaha Studios in Glendale, California. I remember they did the mix there. So Neil Kernan was at the production console for this. He'd done the Streets album. He'd done Autograph Sign In Please. He'd also done Unlock and Key by Dokken. So he was well renowned for being able to put, commercial sheen on stuff. Capture guitars, really good. Drums, vocals, very good producer. But this is unlike any album he ever recorded, really. It's quite an extraordinary achievement, in my opinion. I'll lay my cards on the table. I actually prefer this album to Operation Mindcrime. If someone said to me, "Oh, Mindcrime's better," I wouldn't dispute that. Mindcrime's amazing. I love that as well. There's just something about this album, about what it does for heavy metal in this time, that I've just always loved. I love the more metal approach to this. Okay, and the other thing is they used, Michael Wilton said he used a couple of old Marshalls on the verge of breaking up. They used a Variac a la Van Halen to cook the sound, the valves, so to speak. And that's how they achieved the guitar sound. Later on, they would use Gallien-Kruger amps, and they blew quite a few of them up when they were doing Mindcrime, I think, or certainly Empire, because they would just drive them, have them cranking on 10, I think, in isolation boxes, but don't quote me on that. Okay, so that's a little background about the sound. Basically, your sound and sound, the drums are really hard hitting, they're kind of almost, industrial size. The rhythm guitars are kind of tight, got a tight distortion to them. Bottom end's kind of clanky, quite maidenish, I suppose. It uses a lot of keyboard stabs, it uses a lot of sampled sound effects, voices, and it tries to create a soundscape. It's not a concept album, but I think it is conceptual. I think there's several lyrical themes emerge on this album, but not many, and a lot of the songs to me almost form a little mini concept. But let's just look at the tracks. I'll get me cards on the table. I don't think there's a bad track on this album. I don't think it's one of those albums that doesn't dip. It's like Van Halen 1. Yeah, some tracks are better than the other, but they never dip below a certain amount. The performances are stellar, especially from Jeff Tate, who kind of basically lays his marker down as one of the great metal singers at this time. Blending Halford, Dio and Dickinson into one, really. The guitars of DeGrom and Wilton, they're really tight. The rhythm part's amazing. The clean parts, acoustic parts. The solos, they're not the greatest lead players, but always melodic and really well crafted. And the rhythm section of Scott Rockenfield and Eddie Jackson's great. I've always really liked them. Scott Rockenfield, very imaginative rhythms, drum patterns, and great backing vocals from all the band. It's kind of, everything's kind of pitch perfect on this when you had none of the technology to do that. So it opens with Walk in the Shadows. It's Chris DeGarmo, Jeff Tate, Michael Wilton composition. It's 3 minutes 32. This is basically one of the kind of hits off the album, I suppose. They always play this live. It's a great track. lyrical theme on this, I think it suggests paranoia, you know, walking the shadows. It's a kind of relationship song, but there's this kind of air of paranoia about the lyrics, and that is something that a theme that will emerge through the album. So the next track, I Dream in Infrared, obviously this is got a technological theme with it, but I like to think the kind of character Tate's talking about is somehow human, but is, what's the word I'm looking for, cannot communicate properly in a human sense, and you know, can only do so through technology. And I think this is a theme of the album. I've obviously been reading William Gibson and cyberpunk and stuff like that, but I think the concepts of these lyrics find real precedence in today's age. If you think about social media and mobile phones, Queensryche, they weren't just projecting into the 1990s, but projecting way into the 21st century. It's kind of like Blade Runner. It's like a metal version of the film Blade Runner, and a lot of his ideas, or 2001, you can see them now. So Dreaming Infrared's got a great clean sound. I think they were probably either using a Rockman, or they often use the Roland chorus amp JC 120. I forget the name now, but it's really cool. It's got epic chorus. I mean, one thing with Queensryche, when I was listening to it today, is they have like sort of complex, picky riffs, but essentially around those riffs, you can pick out a simple chord structure that's good to sing over, and then often on choruses, they will break down more to a simple power chord kind of progression, and I think that's great for singing. I think DeGarmo, as a writer, in particular, writing the riffs that he does, understands like the singer needs something to sing over. In actual fact, this is written by Jeff Tate and Michael Wilton. So this time Michael Wilton's still pitching in with some songs. Later on he kind of got moved sideways with the whole Jeff Tate thing. But obviously he's come back as a writer because, you know, Chris DeGarmo's no longer there, neither is Jeff Tate. Third track's The Whisper. Again, this lyrics, I like to think with this, it's like The Whisper, it's like something kind of movement starting, you know, it's that idea. You know, if you had creeping fascism or something like that. And again, this one of the themes of the album is the kind of totalitarianism and how technology might be used by government and stuff like that. This makes great use of Jeff Tate's spoken voice. So this is something he uses to brilliant effect later on in Queensryche. But he's got this lovely resonance to his voice. He also uses whispering voice in the chorus. It's got great keyboard stabs, bam, you know, the keyboard stabs, you know, haven't dated, they just had a real power to it. And Queensryche were ahead of like industrial bands using samples and things like that, and they never really got credit for it. Gonna Get Close to You's next. So this is obviously probably been forced on them by the Rattle Company. It's a Lisa Dalbello song. If you listen to the original track, it's not actually that far off it. They've just kind of rage for ordered it with production, but I think what's interesting is it feels like the Reich have written it, that again the lyrics fit in. It's about it's kind of like a Metal Every Breath You Take, really. It's kind of, you know, I'm going to get close to you, I'm watching you. It's about surveillance. Again, it's that idea that someone maybe use technology, CCTV or something like that, to view someone. They wouldn't connect with them in a true human sense. Really cool track. This was the first single. I think the band were a bit iffy on this, but I think it works really well. Really interesting drum beat, and it uses kind of amazing kind of syncopated guitar line, and it sounds like it's almost machine-like. Brilliant, really good lyrics by Jeff Tate. Vocals by Jeff Tate, of course. He does a cool scream thing, and then track 5 is like one of my favourite tracks. So this is DeGarmo and Tate. This is Killing Words. Superb power ballad, under 4 minutes long. Beautiful chorus, and like it's really haunting, the verses, you know. They've got this almost Terminator style effect underneath the verses, like an explosion sound. I think that's something. I think you can hear like the influence of Brad Fiedel, the film composer. I think, although at this point he'd only done the Terminator soundtrack, I think, you know, where you'd hear these types of sounds. I think they're tapped into that. And again, that's the robotics and cyberpunk and all sorts of stuff like that. But again, like this lyric of this song suggests distance in a relationship, and it's almost like You're Killing Me with Words. It's almost like he's been dumped by text to me. It's that idea that somehow technology's got in the way of the people talking, and from afar, someone's communicated technologically, I don't want to see. And you, again, in today's world, you see that people getting done by text, people getting ghosted, blocked, I think it taps into that. So again, superb song. Then side one of the original vinyl finished with Surgical Strike. This is a Michael Wilton DeGarmo written this. So I'm assuming DeGarmo maybe did the lyrics, or maybe Wilton did, but really good contribution by Wilton, I'm guessing. Again, this what Surgical Strike, drone strikes. Again they're looking at technology to be used in warfare. There's a great line in this: assessment will not be made by humans. Brilliant. And that's a great track. Just brilliant. Side one, really varied, superb. Yeah, and just not outstaying this welcome. The album's 45 minutes long, so it's a little longer than albums were at that time. Remember, this is in the pre-CD era. Well, CDs were around, but people still weren't vinyl. But it's still, people forget Queensryche can write short, punchy songs. So side two opens with like an out-and-out classic New Rigel. DeGarmo and Tate write this. The riff on this is awesome. It's got an amazing bit at the end where this guitar just repeats a little harmonic. Vocal production's amazing on this. And it's got this brilliant verse where it breaks down again with that kind of Brad Fiedel sort of Terminator underbelly. And Tate, it's got his voice is kind of, it's using like what I call a foam style EQ, so it's kind of really nasally, and it explodes in the chorus. I mean, it just blows me away. Then you've got Chemical Youth, We Are Rebellion. This is my favourite lyrics on this. The leftish cry as the right subsides. We are oral supremacies, and brilliant. Well, he pronounces it that way. It's a great track, this. It's got great use of whammy bars. This again is a Michael Wilton. Actually, looking at this Michael Wilton, he's getting more in on the writing. He's obviously a bit more metal, and then he kind of went away from the writing. He kind of moved to DeGarmo and Tate more. But that's a great track, 4 minutes and 15. So I think what's interesting with Surgical Strike, New Rigel, Chemical Youth, they kind of form a little concept there. You got Surgical Strike, kind of destruction. From the destruction, there's a new rule starts to rise, and Chemical Youth, is a rebellion within that or against that. I don't know. It's just like an idea. The next track, like London, again, I think the lyrics here, it's a kind of romantic sort of lyric. Oh, I'll go back to London, but it's almost, to me, it's almost like a London that's been destroyed. It's after some kind of war. And again, it kind of fits in with the way the lyrics of the previous songs have gone. It's almost been forming a little story to me. This is a great riff. It's got a really cool feel on the drums on this. London, brilliant. Quite weird to call the song London, but works beautifully and creates a good counterpoint. This is actually the longest track on the album, 5 minutes and 4 seconds. Really good. Then I should mention there's quite a few kind of crossfades or tracks going into each other on this album. And London goes into Screaming in Digital. Next sort of, this is an out-and-out classic. Brilliant lyric, bringing in the cyberpunk theme, and again suggesting, the way the lyrics have gone in the album so far. Someone's assimilated with the machine, as it were. It's quite interesting. I Dream in Infrared's track 2, the second track, and this is the second last track, and there's a kind of mirroring there. It's brilliant, amazing chorus on this, amazing vocal production, great use of a kind of industrial sounding keyboards, and lovely chords on this. On this album, I mean, going into guitar speak, DeGarmo and Wilton make really good use of sus2 chords. And I forgot to mention, actually, on the Killing Words, they play like a minor 11 chord, and then kind of harmonise it. They play, one plays a different chord shape at the top, and that was quite unique at the time. I don't think anyone had really done that. So the way the guitars are crafted on this is really something special. Very intelligent guitar players. The other thing with the solos is they have this quirk. DeGarmo and Wilton is, whenever they do a song in a kind of solo in minor, they'll actually use the Dorian mode. On runs down, diddle 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 diddle. They'd often do like 3-note runs, going down in groups of 3. So their solos always have, when they do those runs, a little kind of happier vibe to them. And I wouldn't play that myself. I would go natural minor, but it's kind of their style. It's kind of weird. I don't know whether they do that intentionally or it's just how they hear things. Screaming the Digital was great, amazing ending, and then it goes into I Will Remember, which just finishes a beautiful track. A beautiful ballad. They played this on the Unplugged. This is written by DeGarmo. Just looking there, so probably pre-dating Silent Lucidity in a way, I suppose. I love the lyrics to this. An orbit survey finds your mind. It's like the lyrics are kind of, there's been some kind of destruction or dispersal, I don't know, and it's almost like communication over a distance, satellite or, technology, bringing people together but pushing them apart. So, like, beautiful, beautiful song. So, there's a lot of, like I say, the lyrical themes. For me, this is just a kind of personal take. You can read them as all kind of being kind of certain themes, but interacting, working as a whole in a way. So the album's not a concert album, but it's got conceptual themes to me. And I just think it sounds great. I just think it's a great listen. It never fails to disappoint. There's never a time like I don't want to listen to Rage for Order. To just say, I've got a weird one with this. It came out, obviously, in the June of '86. So that time they got a front cover spread in Kerrang. So we got the Kerrang. But I've got to say, they look like a bunch of wankers. I never bought the album. It got amazing reviews. It was like, this is amazing. But what happened is Queensryche, record company pressure. Like Dokken a few months before the Under Lock and Key album, they'd been to Ray Brown, the leather designer guy, did all the gear for the bands, and had these awesome long coats, and it was quite cool. The kind of looked, it was like future metal, but it was all a bit Warrior, if you remember them. But they're wearing like Michael Wilton had lipstick on, and he looked like he looked really effeminate. Nothing wrong with that, but it just wasn't right for their music. And I remember my brother and my middle brother going, well, look at these bunch of wankers. And one of Chris DeGarmo's quotes was, we've got some pretty grandiose plans for the future. And combined with the image and Kerrang sort of going overboard with them, it turned me off, I've got to admit. I was like, oh, I'm not getting that album. And then I think I heard Walk in the Shadow. I was like, maybe I didn't, totally connect with the guitar solos. I was really into shredding at that time. So I didn't buy the album. I think the image, really did them a disservice. It's not their fault. They probably weren't strong enough to fight the record company when, by the next album, their grandiose plan, Mindcrime, that came out, and I didn't get that at the time, but it was that June, July '88. But a few months later, about the following year, I was knocking around with a mate. We actually went on to form a band together. And he said, have you heard Queensryche? I said, well, I've heard some of the stuff. I couldn't quite get away with it. And he had Mindcrime. We listened to it, and I was like, actually, this is fucking amazing. This is brilliant, this. So I went out and got Mindcrime. I just decided to get Rage for Order at the same time. So I basically got Mindcrime and Rage for Order on the same day on vinyl. I listened to them at the same time. So it's weird. I didn't sort of get Mindcrime and go back to this. I had them at the same time. So they kind of ran in tandem, and for some reason I just kind of liked what they did with this just that bit more. I think Mindcrime kind of builds up, doesn't it? You got the mission. It really starts to go stratospheric. Not that the tracks before that aren't great; they're all great. I just like the kind of singular song, but conceptually linked thing with this. So it's a quirky thing. So I sort of feel ashamed for not getting this at the time, but sometimes you get that. Sometimes you get kind of sold something by a magazine, but you got to find your own way into it. And so once I got both this and Mindcrime Beyond, Queensryche became one of my all-time favourite bands. So I think I've covered all that there. That is Rage for Order. It's 35 years old today. What a fantastic record, and the part of the peak imperial phase of Queensryche, one of the greatest bands of all time for me. Cheers, thanks very much.